Something's gonna come up soon.
My father and I repaired a building that had survived the fire and continued to live in this town.
Good for them. They repaired a building. That's way better than sitting around doing nothing.
Yes. Espella wasn't even able to leave her room. We couldn't leave her behind when she needed all the help she could get. Mr. Cantabella showed us this book one day. Then he made an unusual request of us.
I'd like to make this story real. Would you be willing to help me do so?
Why not?
To our surprise, he was entirely serious. Seeing that, we gladly offered our help.
Oh, man.
A story about the evil-doing witches getting caught and punished, and Bezella the source of them all.
Were you paying attention, Espella? Witches got what they deserved, and peace has been restored to the town.
Oh, I love killing.
Murder is good.
Oh, God. No, wait.
Then she whispered to herself.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Oh, God.
I'm not evil. Everyone else is.
Oh, my God. A messed up family.
When I saw her smile, I felt as if something broke inside me. I couldn't afford to let her be sad again. Maybe if Bezella were to exist in this town, Espella would stop thinking she herself harbored the Great Witch. I continued writing stories about witches. Even I would act them out for Espella. And gradually, the number of characters in my stories increased. That was, of course, largely due to the ongoing reconstruction of the town.
How much reconstruction?
There wasn't anything on a big scale. I simply paid people to move in and act out their roles. But I began to think that I would need more than that. The story had to be real.
To make a lie seem true, you resorted to even more lies.
Yes, I was certain that was the only way.
My question, though, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
is when did he start dressing like this? At what point in time did he decide that this would help enhance the story?
He always dressed
started
like this.
Dressing like a crazy Dracula.
Straight out of the way.
Right away?
This is just what he looks like in the morning.
Okay.
How did I do so? I remembered about Newton's research.
He was working on a certain medicine.
It was a kind of tranquilizer made from the local plants that he was testing at the time. But it was difficult to put into practical use. The substance had a danger of causing unconsciousness and hypnosis. I can see how that could be abused to cause much harm, supposing it fell into the wrong hands. At the same time, I was just what I needed for my ambitious project. I contacted the government, and that was the beginning of what came to be known as Project Labyrinthia.
Sorry, Mr. Juxtaposable. So I did a bunch of convoluted things to make sure she would be sad, but then I rejected her entirely.
Neglected her entirely.
Neglected her entirely. Just...
A town with human test subjects, all in a state of long-term hypnosis.
You devised that plan solely for the sake of your daughter.
Yes. We acquired the land which had been laid to waste by the fire. The new town was slowly becoming populated. Gradually, the rules of Labyrinthia were established. It was to be a town where magic and witches were a reality to the residents. All of this was possible thanks to the drug. During that time, I began dressing like a Dracula.
The test subjects were exposed to it through the ink used to pin the story, right?
That's right. It was the dangerous drug developed by Newton. About 10 years have passed since then. Even now, the town continues to change.
Why did you bow there? Why did you bow?
You leaving?
Yeah. You all set?
All we have left is periods.
Project Labyrinthia. And all this was done for one girl. Well, let's kill her.
Oh no!
Espella was only able to be herself when she lived within my story. Oh, the irony of it.
Only within a world in which Bezella was real.
Could Espella's tragic memories be sealed? All this while, Eve was assisting me.
I was the first shade. As soon as the story began, I disappeared from the scene. If Espella was to see some magic, then someone had to don this robe.
That's the robe of invisibility. I remember it was a while ago. I remember. I gave Espella new memories so that she could live in this town with everyone else.
We haven't really explained why the robes make people invisible, but...
Microbots.
Sure, microbots.
I also see the memory of her friend, Eve.
What? My existence was too strongly connected to her memory of the fire. Afterwards, I returned as Darklaw, a stranger to Espella.
She picked her own name, too.
But even if I were doing this for Espella's sake, that's just going too far. I made that choice. I do not regret the past 10 years. Meanwhile, my father was supporting Labyrinthia from behind the scenes, in his own way.
Do you mean his contributions as an alchemist?
My father's knowledge of medicine was indispensable for this town to function. The hallucinogenic ink was my father's work as well.
So it was. Newton and Eve sacrificed more than anyone else for the sake of Espella and this town.
So that's why the stories didn't work anymore, because Belduke was dead. So they didn't have ink anymore.
I'll be forever indebted to them.
That'd be part of it. I bet they had a recipe, though. We wanted to save Espella, just like you. Well, she's broken now. You broke her. But then, there's still something I don't understand. Why were you trying to destroy this fake world? In the end, you chose to betray Espella and Mr. Cantabella. Oh, but I've told you already, have I not?
It was your revenge against Mr. Cantabella for choosing to end the story, correct?
I wonder whether that was the true reason. Professor? Would Miss Belduke really betray them merely because she did not want the story to end? I dare say there was another, considerably more important reason. She had another reason? No need to frown in dismay, Mr. Wright. Please, leave this to me.
Save again.
Grown-ups are here. Oh my gosh, okay, fine.
Well, then let us hear what the Inquisition has to say.
Because he's going to do another thing. We're just so low on shields. Literally one. Ooh.
What other reason led the witness to betray Mr. Cantabella? Suicide.
Suicide? You think so?
Her dad killed himself.
Okay.
This is also the only piece of evidence we haven't used yet out of those four.
Smarty.
This letter was Miss Belduke's real motive.
What is this? I think I've seen it before.
That's the letter written by Mr. Belduke for Mr. Cantabella. It's also Mr. Belduke's suicide note. My dear friend, I hope you can forgive me for leaving this world of my own will. What I have done cannot be forgiven. I can never escape from it. Something was tormenting Mr. Belduke. It became too much for him to bear and drove him to suicide. These past 10 years, I thought Father was glad to be helping Cantabella. But little did I know, he was suffering terrible anguish all that time. Cantabella twisted the lives of so many people for the sake of his daughter. Was the story not but a glorified lie, stripping so many of what little happiness they had? All those years, Father was racked by a crashing sense of guilt. His agony culminated in the incident of 3 months ago. Mr. Belduke's death.
Yeah, what happened with this? Was it always there and then Like, how?
It's a metaphor.
I need to know how it appeared. I assumed it was... I guess it's invisible, but...
Before Labyrinthia was created, certain things had to be concealed in order to seal Espella's memories. Had she seen them, she would have remembered they were simply too dangerous to her. One of them was me. Espella's friend Eve had to be reborn as a shade and disappear into the forest. The next thing was the bell tower. I see. Had she seen it, it would have been certain to stir up those traumatic memories. Memories of the legendary fire. The only way to prevent that was to erase the bell tower from Labyrinthia.
But how could you do that?
Using the same method as with this robe.
Sure.
The robe of invisibility. In short, we covered up the tower with a huge robe. Although it wasn't as easy as it sounds.
Doesn't sound very easy.
In other words, the bell tower had been there this whole time.
Okay.
Only the townspeople couldn't see it. Is that correct? Indeed.
My question was it invisible? Was how did people not walk into it?
Well, maybe they'll address that.
I don't know what to say.
At any rate, the situation changed with that lightning strike 3 months ago, did it not? Oh, lightning hit it. Ah. It was a most unfortunate accident. The lightning set the bell tower's cover on fire. That cover was quickly consumed by flames, revealing that abominable bell tower. I think they would have just destroyed the bell tower. The beginning of all this, the Bell of Ruin appeared before us. 'Twas mockery of our efforts. That tower emerging from the flames must have seemed like a sign of divine anger to Mr. Belduke. A sign that no matter how you attempt to conceal your sins, the truth will eventually float up to the surface. Having realized this, Father chose death.
He was such a kind-hearted man. I didn't have an inkling of what he'd been going through.
To him, the participation of Labyrinthia's people within this project was not voluntary. Even though they had themselves signed the contract, I believe he felt those people were being deceived. Father took his life because of you, Cantabella! Now you know why I did what I did. I lost my father 3 months ago. That day my revenge began.
Your revenge? Oh.
The first step was my plan. My plan was to rewrite the story.
What did you say?
As president of Labyrinthia Inc., you had to spend most of your time in London. Over the past few years, you were coming to Labyrinthia only for the parades. So naturally, I knew you would never notice if the story were slightly changed. That explains it. I couldn't help thinking there was something strange going on. Mr. Cantabella is Espella's father, after all. He wouldn't have made Espella a witch in his story.
Espella was a witch? When did that happen?
So oblivious.
How could you have known, after all? Let me fill you in on the details. Espella has already been tried once within the witch's court.
Impossible! Why? How could you?
I'm really, really oblivious.
You knew the risk that would carry.
Look at you. What a fine author of that grand story you are. You left all the work in Labyrinthia to me. Meanwhile, you were making millions for yourself in London. What a pathetic excuse for a father. You didn't even notice that your precious little Espella was in such danger.
Grr.
Miss Belduke, why did you do that to Espella? Do you even need to ask? I did it to unlock her memories. You mean, when the legendary fire took place, Espella was so traumatized that she closed herself off to the world. We were just little girls then. That tragic accident was too much for us to handle. I am Groot. all. This fictitious town was created as a facade to keep the truth away from Espella. But the weight of all these lies led my father to suicide. Despite that, the person responsible for all this carried on as if nothing had happened. I couldn't forgive him. As Belduke's bereaved daughter, I had to have my revenge against both Cantabellas.
Oh, Darklaw, you poor thing. You cray-cray.
Judge, this is the whole truth. Now you know the true identity of Espella.
Objection.
You say this is the whole truth, but is that really the case? Professor, what are you going on about? We have been provided with a clear picture of what happened to Espella so long ago. Nevertheless, we haven't yet heard your testimony. Ridiculous.
I actually think Darklaw rang the bell.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This will be the last testimony in this trial. Tell us about the night of the legendary fire. I request that you tell us your story. Who do you think you are, Inquisitor? I am merely one of the supporting characters within this tale. However, I am very much interested in the truth.
This has been a very long trial, of which this shall be the last interrogation.
Save it when they give you a chance.
The court demands that the single other witness of the legendary fire provide us with her testimony.
We'll listen to the testimony first.
Okay.
Very well. There is only one truth. Nothing can change that. Oh, just the testimony, okay. Espella wanted to ring the bell no matter what, so we went up to the belfry. The festival celebrations had already started. The mechanism for ringing the bell was at a height even we could reach.
Uh-huh.
The next thing I remember is coming to and running to Espella's side. I was shaking her until she finally opened her eyes. The next moment, we saw that nightmarish view. All strength abandoned us, and we didn't know what to do. That was when we were found by my father and Mr. Cantabella. The bell could only be rung with a special mechanism.
That's right. It was made in such a way that even a child could use it.
Ooh.
It was probably constructed by my father. I suppose he wanted to make it impossible for anyone to ring that bell. In light of the events that followed, that was clearly a very foolish decision. A mechanism for ringing the bell. I noticed something like that on a pillar when we went to the belfry earlier. I'd better make a note of it in the court record. Even a child can use it.
Oh dear, that could certainly be cruel. I have to agree. If only we had not discovered those ruins and brought that bell to our town. Or if only we could have deciphered those ancient writings a little earlier. Moreover, if only the groundwater in this area didn't cause that strange condition.
Unfortunately, Mr. Cantabella, the tragedy occurred. All that remains is for us to do is seek out the truth. Not for the sake of vengeance, but for the sake of the future.
The future.
But my vengeance. Mr. Wright. Yes? You have been fighting fiercely to uncover the truth. This is the final interrogation. I trust you know what to do. Leave it to me. To be honest, I have no idea what lies ahead. But whatever it is, there's no question we need to get to the bottom of it. There's gotta be light at the end of this tunnel.
Okay. We're definitely really close to the end. With our one shield, this is gonna be rough.
I
Alright.
think they'd refresh us eventually. Always be pressing.
If that's gonna refresh, is the last trial.
You needed both pendants to access the belfry, correct? Espella asked me to bring my mother's pendant, so I did. That wasn't the only requirement, however. You also needed to solve a puzzle in order to use the contraption. I've always been a master puzzle solver. For me, it was child's play, literally.
Puzzles were the money.
She solved it when she was a little girl. What's your excuse, Nick? Hey, I have different talents.
Espella and Eve were best friends at the time. Eve is 2 years older than Espella. She used to be like a big sister to her.
So the two of you went to the belfry. What happened next? The festival celebration already started. Magnets ringing the bell was at a height even we could reach.
Well, Darklaw was taller.
So even a little girl could ring the bell? Yes, easily.
I intended to make it so that the bell would only be rung on special occasions. That's exactly why I put that puzzle in place.
You also divided the key into the belfry into two components as an extra precaution.
I was careful, but the same cannot be said of Newton, who constructed the mechanism as a whole. He presumably wished to make it so that even our young daughters could use it, meaning strength was not a requirement. And that became his undoing.
By the way, how old were the girls at that time?
Espella was 6 and Eve was 8.
So yeah, Darklaw's 20. I see. That mechanism was the last thing I saw before falling unconscious. And then... the next thing I remember is coming to and running to Espella's side.
Tell us more about that.
Do you mean that you fell unconscious after the bell was struck? Yes, I believe so.
Our peculiar condition causes an instant reaction. The brain probably doesn't even have the time to register the sound before consciousness is lost.
It was almost as if a slice of time had been stolen from my life. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor. I lifted my head and saw Espella lying nearby. I sprang to my feet and ran to her side. What about the situation in the town at the time? I was preoccupied with Espella, so I didn't notice it not to begin with. At that time, was Espella still unconscious? Yes, I panicked a little and took her in my arms, hoping she'd wake up. I was shaking her until she finally opened her eyes. The next moment, we saw that nightmarish view.
Hold it!
So, it was you who woke Espella up, witness? Yes, it was me. She was out cold, curled up on the floor until I shook her awake. As soon as she came to, she turned to look at that town, to that nightmarish view stretching out before us. When you say nightmarish view, I can find no other words to describe it. We froze in terror at the sight. It took us a while to notice that smoke was creeping up the bell tower, too. Our eyes filled with tears and we couldn't stop crying, perhaps because of the smoke.
Or maybe the dead people.
The town seemed like a fire dragon's playground. I was trembling with terror, unlike anything I'd known before. How you doing, honey?
Yeah.
You guys? Nope.
Dear me, merely imagining it now raises the hairs on my beard.
All strength abandoned us and we didn't know what to do. This is when we were found by my father and Mr. Cantabella.
Okay.
Hold it!
You didn't leave the belfry until their arrival? Of course not. We were paralyzed with fear. It was an event so traumatizing it still haunts us. Espella fainted again when she saw the fire dragon. I was crying and waiting until our fathers found us.
We went to the bell tower as it was a good vantage point. We weren't expecting to find our daughters there.
Of course, neither suspected at that point that the disaster had been caused by the Bell of Ruin.
Eve was in tears, sobbing violently. As for Espella, she was in a daze. Her face frozen in an expression of disbelief. She didn't know what was happening around her.
I cannot say this with certainty, as my memories are a little vague. But I think that she was trying to protect her. Whoa.
Hang on!
Mr. Cantabella.
I remember that very well. As if it happened yesterday.
Cantabella, would you mind telling us what you saw?
Eve! Espella! Are you alright?
Go.
Eve! What on earth happened here?
It was Bezella! Bezella the witch!
Bezella? What are you talking about?
Bezella comes out whenever someone rings the bell, right?
What have you done? You didn't...
Oh, please, Mr. Cantabella, don't be angry at Espella.
Eve said it with the most serious look on her face. Please, Mr. Cantabella, don't be angry at her. When she said that, I grasped the situation. I realized what had transpired in the belfry. And I thought to myself, I must protect these children.
Eve. I'm so sorry, Eve. Espella!
Espella, sweetie.
Dad, please forgive me. You've done all this for me.
Espella, you're with us again.
All this for me. Well, well. At last, it would appear we are one step away from the truth. Professor, you seem to already know what the truth is. Do I? Well, that remains to be seen. Continue the interrogation and we shall all know soon enough.
I'm still going with my gut that Eve actually rang the bell.
Seems like it could make sense.
Very well, the court agrees with Inquisitor Layton. Witness, continue your testimony.
As you wish.
Okay, so this the device that she's talking about, and anybody can ring it. Let's look at it. Very end over there.
Is it this?
Yeah, can we look
Device
at
for ringing. This is as much as we get.
I feel like if we need to present here, but you want to use a hint coin?
Yes, I do.
No, not here. Press this again. Okay.
Hold it!
Well, Espella's active now, so she might remember something.
Oh.
As soon as she came to, she turned to look at the town, to that nightmarish view stretching out before us.
Ooh.
Now she's responding, and she didn't before because she was comatose earlier. Excuse me, Espella? Espella, are you okay? Yes, everything's fine. My apologies for bringing back such troubling memories. Nevertheless, you must endeavor to face them and overcome the power they hold over you. Yes, I remember it now. The fire dragon. I summoned it. Because I'm Bezella!
No, Espella, it was just an illusion.
No, you're wrong, Dad. It wasn't an illusion, it was a fact. If I hadn't run that bell, none of this would have happened. Bezella is the bringer of disaster, and that's what I've done to our town.
Whoa!
Ack!
The accused run away! Quick, after her!
What?
She's running to the bell tower!
What?
Darn it, she's locked herself in!
It's no use, I'll have to break down the door to get in.
Oh, that girl! She's gone and Dilbil Chaltonkenschmilled herself.
Oh, that little guy.
Yeah, that's a verb for messing up. Stay away from me!